that song is fantastic, and I was because it didn't really sound like us. Anything that sounds not like us, I love everything that sounds
anything
not like
this
us.
band. I love it.
Hi, I'm Erica from NME, and today we are joined by Nickelback for this episode of NME's In Conversation series. How's it going?
Excellent. How are you?
Good. It's cozy.
It's cozy.
We're snuggled right up over here.
Yeah, very cozy.
We love to see it.
Right.
So I did want to dig into Get Rollin, your 10th studio album. But before we get into that and this album coming out, your first new one in 5 years, I wanted to ask, 10 albums in, how do you approach making new music differently than you did at the start of your career?
Well, at the start of the career, we had to beg, borrow, or steal enough money to rent studio time, find an engineer. That was rough because we had to say good enough so many times, and that always just bugged me. Really bugged me. Anytime you'd be working on a part, you'd be just trying to come up with something new in the studio, and there's just so much. There's only so much time you have because it's like you have 3 more days, and the next band is coming in, and that's it's like one of those things. So good enough got tossed around a lot, and with this last record, the pace was so lax. Just we would work on a song. 3 weeks later, we'd work on another song. 2 weeks after that, we might work on a chorus. I mean, it was just, there was no hurry, no rush. And that type of vibe lends itself well to creativity. Nobody wants a stopwatch over their corner. Nobody wants, a record company standing over here and management and booking agents going, the tour, and having to hit that deadline. So that was really nice.
So you didn't have a timeline, you could just kind of create in the space that you wanted. I know this album was also recorded during lockdown in Vancouver, but what was kind of happening mentally and emotionally that inspired not only the sonics of the album, but the lyrics as well?
I really truly don't think that, the whole lockdown, the whole pandemic, I don't think that crept into the creative subconscious at all. It really didn't. We weren't. And the other thing is, you don't want to go through that and then write about it and be like, hey, remember how horrible this time was? Well, here's a whole album dedicated to that time. We didn't really want to do that and, put our fans through that either. Music's supposed to be about escapism. You're supposed to be, music is supposed to pull these emotions out of you. Hopefully, wonderful emotions. Maybe a little heartache here or there. But for the most part, you want to get away from that type of stuff.
I think you could tell too by the cover of the album and whatnot. The vibe we were going for in this one.
Can we flash that? Should we flash this very relaxed, very chill vibe that's happening on the cover? We love to see it.
Which was a bit of a left turn for some of the fans too, just to say some loved it, some were kind of head scratching, and it's like, hey, if you're thinking about it at least, but.
Lighthearted.
Yeah, our last album was a concerted rock effort, which we really liked. This one was like, you know what, let's make this like a good time kind of vibe.
A good time vibe. So I know that you did some experimentation in the studio, also revising and revisiting old material. Mm-hmm. What tracks on the new album do you think kind of embody that new experimentation the most? Like, which songs would you point to?
The 2 songs that come to mind right off the bat would be, there's a song in there called Tidal Wave, and to me, it really had an indie vibe to it, right up until I started singing on it. It was so different for us. It just didn't have kind of like the sound that we normally have, whatever that is, because we're all over the map. But and it was just really different. It was just kind of a left field thing for us. And the other one was probably High Time. It's kind of like this 70s country sort of rock thing. And it, for me, and the reason I think we went with this whole sort of van 70s vintage sort of cover thing, I just had this mini movie in my head. Like you're in a van, not unlike the one on the cover of the record, and you're like traveling across the country, No one's got a job. You're going from city to city. You're just kind of going from like festival to concert to festival sort of thing, picking up
Van life.
yeah, van life, just kind of picking up, hitchhikers along the way that might be going to the same place, and and every time you open up the side door, it's just wafts of pot smoke kind of coming out of the van. So this is sort of it's sort of Cheech and Chong vibe of this. That was the movie that was really going through my head when we.
Which
were
Cheech and Chong movie? Tell me.
Up in Smoke, maybe.
Up in Smoke.
Yeah.
All right.
I was going to ask about that track. It feels like it's got a little bit of a twang to it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So were you listening to specific country songs during that time, or was that just kind of like how it came out when you were playing it?
I'm just sort of listening to everything at all times.
Yeah.
And I think all of our records sort of reflect that just from what I bring to it. I'm really all over the map. And I think I'm like a lot of other people. I don't really know anybody who just listens to one kind of music and is just sort of really stuck in one genre only. I think I'm one of those people that just listens to everything. When I was growing up, it was everything. It was everything from like, you'd go Michael Jackson all the way on one side. You'd have Prince and Michael Jackson and that sort of stuff. And then, you go to like Def Leppard and like, and I'm talking like young, very young. And then we moved into, once we started playing instruments and it was like the late 80s, like 89, 90, I was listening to just a lot of Metallica and Guns N' Roses and Megadeth, Anthrax, just kind of like anything heavy, that was guitar driven. I think that's what I was leading to.
Yeah, and it all just kind of gets distilled into what you play.
Absolutely. It's, everything we do is this weird conglomeration. It's this like melting pot of music, and it's just you don't know where you're pulling it from, but it's just everything you've listened to.
I can hear the Anthrax in High Time.
yeah.
So your first single, San Quentin, I read it was inspired by an actual warden of the high security prison. Can you tell us a little bit more about that story, how you ended up in that situation, and how it became a song?
He has to have heard this story by now. It's starting to freak me out a little bit, but anyway. There's nothing bad. It's just like I just met the warden I was at a birthday party it was in California, and I went to this birthday party, and this guy comes up and he just says, there was like 1,000 people at this birthday party. It was huge. There was a band playing. It was a massive party, and this guy's like, singer for Nickelback? I'm like, yeah. He's like, yeah, I'm a fan. I said, oh, nice to meet you. Tells me his name. I'm like, what do you do? He says, I'm the warden at San Quentin. I was like, yeah, right. And then everyone behind him was like, dude, that's the warden at San Quentin. I'm like, oh, you're actually the warden. You're actually the warden at San Quentin. And immediately, I was like, I'm just, the internal monologues begins. I'm like, that is a decent song title right there. And everything he's saying to me at that point in time, I just went full Dewey Cox in Walk the Line. It's just like, don't you do it. Don't you dare do it right now. Don't you dare write a song right now, Dewey Cox. I'm just like, San Quentin. I'm pretty sure he was still talking. And I was like, there's just no one home. And the second the conversation finished, I pulled it away. I'm just like, just write that down, a couple ideas. There you go. So there you go, that's it.
That's a driving song. It sounds like a song you write about a warden.
Well, it's not so much about a warden.
You nailed
It's
it.
about trying to stay. It's about like one of those nights, when you're going out on the town and
one of those nights that
Just
no
one of
one really has except for Chad. I was just trying to stay out of jail.
I have a lot of nights. I have had. Let me clarify. A lot of nights in my life where it's like, there's an excellent chance I'm going to jail tonight. It's just one of those. It's a bit of it's a parody kind of thing, but it's an aggressive song about and the I guess you'd call it the tagline in the chorus is can somebody please keep me the hell out of San Quentin.
So we talked about Tidal Wave a little bit. You mentioned that the song just kind of showed up, and it came about after you'd already recorded the songs that you thought were going to be on this album. What was it about that track that made you feel like, okay, actually, make sure that's on there as well?
The record was done. I think it was done. I think we had 11 tracks on there, and we've kind of got this tradition. It's always 11 tracks. Why? But so we got 11 songs there, and I start playing this little pattern on the guitar, and I'm positive we were just wrapping up the last bit of the 11th tune, and then we were going to start mixing in a couple days. And I start playing this little thing, and I just start noodling around this cyclical riff, and it's catchy. And I'm like, I should just grab my phone. I don't want to disrupt what's going on because they're busy doing a lot of things. They're trying to get all the tracks from every single song all ready to go to be mixed. And I'm just getting ready to pull my phone out. I'm just going to set that down. I'm just going to record this really quickly. And then I've got the idea. And that it'll just go in the vault, and I can look back at that later. And Chris turns around. He can hear me playing this thing. Our producer, Chris Basford, turns around and he says, that's catchy. Let's record that. I said, yeah, I was just going to put it in my phone. I didn't want to stop. He's like, no, let's. So I go in, put a mic.
And he's fast enough. Our engineer's just like,
So
new
fast.
session, boom, not ready to go, which helps immensely in the studio.
Yeah, he also said, he was like, let's get that down. So I go in, we stick a mic in front of the acoustic, and bang, we've got it. And I go, roll, give me another track, roll, because I got this other little idea now that's creeping in my head, and I want to do this. And so I start laying these doorbells, we call them doorbells on there, right? So I start playing some doorbells, getting the odd doorbell on there, and it's just doing the thing. It's getting more and more contagious, and there isn't even a lyric there. And then I don't know what happened, and I spit out this line, and then we're listening to it back. It's kind of rolling. I'm like, damn, that's a little earworm right there. That thing's cool as hell. And I said, loving you is like surfing on a tidal wave. And Chris is like, because in my mind I was just kind of thinking like, it's one of those things that's really exciting, and you better enjoy it while it lasts because it's going to come crashing down, kind of thing, right? And he's like, that's good. And so I came up with this melody line. He's like, go lay that down. So I just run in the booth really quickly and I sing out this line, and then it just starts. And in like 45 minutes, this song is appearing that was supposed to just be an idea getting laid down. I call him, like, hey. He's like, what's up? I'm like, listen, I need you to listen to this for a second. And I just held up the phone, and he goes, I'll be in tomorrow, first thing, we're working on that tune. I said, okay, there we go. It's a good sign. That was the validation right there. He's like, we're working on that tomorrow. And then the next thing you know, it started getting better and better.
It's one of those things where it's nice to be able to trust your gut. Your gut can send you in a few different directions, and some people get a little apprehensive or trepidatious about maybe following that, but it's always served me. It's always served us, I think. And so when you do something like that, and especially that was really clear to me. I think that song is fantastic, and because it didn't really sound like us. Anything that sounds not like us, I love everything that sounds
anything
not
like this
us.
band. I love it.
No, but it's got that. It's like he says, you start singing, and it's like that's the flavor that comes from the culmination of everything we've listened to, and I what I like is that we can do that. I don't think some other bands that are stuck in a genre can do that, and their fans will go, oh yeah, that's great, or I believe that, or we'll accept that in the canon. But I think it's totally fits in with our repertoire.
Speaking of the culmination of inspirations, another single these days, you name drop Motorhead, Guns N' Roses, even Prince. When it comes to going back in time in the 80s and enjoying those artists, I'm curious, do you feel like those artists specifically have inspired your music, or was it more of just like, these are the artists that we wanted to have in this song?
I never thought of it that way, to be honest, but yes. For me personally, I remember the first 3 cassettes I ever owned were, not music I listened to, but cassettes I owned were Thriller, Purple Rain, and I think Weird Al in 3D. Which was an awesome, only I wore that one out. But the Purple Rain album was just unreal.
Hey, so Yoda? Which album was that?
Oh, I don't know. I wasn't on him at that point.
One of my buddies had Yoda, and I just thought that was so good.
Well, man,
met him in a swamp down in Dago Bar.
He's he's appealing to everybody. I think.
So good.
But also I remember when I moved to this small town that we call hometown when I was like 13. I was from a different place. And this is where these guys all lived. And when I first went to town, I was meeting people. I remember when somebody had satellite TV because we were in the country. We didn't have hardly any kind of TV, and they had Headbangers Ball from MTV.
Headbangers
And
Ball.
I saw Ace of Spades and saw the video but heard the song, and I was just like, it felt like it was weird. It felt like I was supposed to feel like I was too young to listen to that. Right? I shouldn't have been listening to that.
Right.
And it's just something about it. There's nothing salacious about it, but it's like I was like, I really like this. And so I listen to Motorheads. I don't know how much it went in our music, but it plays a part in our history. So I love that we drop these things, and Guns N' Roses and all this kind of stuff. So it's like they're little snapshots of parts of our.
I got arrested for stealing a Motorhead T-shirt. That's
Yep.
That's why I put it.
Yeah, well, I know.
That's why I put the line in there. I didn't realize that. I don't even know why I was stealing that damn shirt. I got caught at a mall in Calgary, and we were. My mom was taking. I was 13. Mom was taking Mike and I to a Metallica concert later, so then she had to come and pick me up from the police station.
No, it sucks.
I already had like 11 B&E charges that I still hadn't saw.
Jeez, there's the theme starting early.
Is San Quentin making any sense right now?
There we go.
Sense?
Just get clarified.
It's like every parent's fear. It's like you went to Metallica and then you ended up in jail.
Yeah.
No, I went to jail, and then went to Metallica, and then while sitting in Metallica at 13, there's Mike and I, and we're enjoying this show, and this guy next to us lights up a joint.
Not this guy, but some other guy.
Not this guy, just some dude. This guy, this fellow, unknown human, was beside me and lights up a joint, passes it over to me, and I'm like, yeah, I'll try that. First time. My brother's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I have no idea. We start hauling off this thing. I pass it back to him. Like, it's super stoned. Everything, the middle part of one, that part kicks in. I'm really high. And everybody else is like standing up and they're just rocking the devil horns.
I saw the same tour in Vancouver, and I think that was one of the first times I smoked pot too.
There you go. I'm sitting in
What
my
a
chair.
breakthrough! Oh my god!
Yeah. Mike's looking over me. He's just like, "What's wrong with you?" Like, I'm
There's
like,
the big
I don't
brother.
know. I'm 13. Just like wonderful decision making at all times.
How many questions have we got through? Like three questions.
So the
Sorry.
takeaway from this is that Weird Al Yankovic inspired this new album.
Okay.
Yes.
Weird Al.
That's
Yes.
the headline.
Yeah, that's the headline.
No, this is great. This is a good segue because my next question was going to be about how well I think Nickelback does when it comes to the subject matter of like nostalgia and looking back. I mean, Photograph is a massive hit, but also now these days, kind of a similar feeling. What do you think it is about that process of kind of what we're doing right now that inspires you to write these songs that are very like present moment and modern tracks that kind of look back on good memories?
Well, we didn't even really know that that's what we were doing when we started writing the song those days. So with Photograph was really autobiographic. For us, it was. So 3 of the 4 band members grew up in this town, little tiny town of 2,900 people in the middle of Canada, called Hanna, Alberta. And that one's really about us. Those days is really about anybody that grew up in the 80s. That's why. And we were sitting there, we started noodling around with the chords and the melody and a little bit of the cadence. And I said, remember when the streetlights came on and we had to be home? And everyone went, yep. And then we all started doing that thing, and I was like, no, I think that needs to be the first line of the song. And then everyone was like, oh, here we go. And then we knew exactly where we were going. And then it was remember trying to hit 88 to go back in time. That one, like remember Guns N' Roses came out, we were standing in line, all this stuff. Like, remember when they played Purple Rain at our first slow dance? Remember when we thought the first base was just holding hands? Like all these just doing the thing, and all those cultural references from that time. And then you throw in like a lyric video or an actual video, and everyone goes,
Yeah, and that's specific, right? Obviously, but then you leave the chorus kind of, when we're making the chorus is very much so where people can relate from like any time. Just everybody's feels like you made movies for you and the times you have with everybody. So it's nice. I think everybody can kind of grab onto that, even if you're not you didn't live through the 80s, so.
So I was digging around on fan forums and...
Don't do that.
Okay. But a lot of people were asking about a Nickelback documentary that they heard might be coming out back in 2020.
That's his baby.
How's that documentary doing, Ryan?
I'll let you finish your question.
How's that documentary?
Tell us about
How's that documentary?
How is that documentary coming? Well, it is done. I feel a little sheepish about it because at the beginning of the pandemic, we were like, oh, the tour's canceled. Like, well, let's get this documentary out as fast as possible. So I said, hey, it's going to come out. In mere months, it will be out. And wow, was I off on that. We, as the album goes, we're like, oh, we had lots of time to make this album. We were like, how can we make this a bit better? Now we've got a bit of time here. And so yeah, there was a bit of refilming and doing whatnot that we polished over these last couple of years. It is done.
Everyone thinks I'm the perfectionist.
Yeah, it is done. But we're trying to, it's tough. It's like when especially with video and images and stuff, where we've got to make sure we're all happy with how this is being portrayed. But also you have to be honest about it.
Let's be honest.
Yeah,
that documentary is never coming out.
No, it is. I'm gonna say the beginning of this new year coming out here. So there's a good chance. But I just didn't want a fluff piece. I didn't want to like, hey, this is great. We're great. Fans gonna like this. Blah blah. It's like there's got to be a lot of real elements, and we talk about stuff that we want to talk about, and so I think people will like it. It is happening. Mark my word.
So next year in March, you'll be inducted into the Canadian Music Hall of Fame. Congratulations, first and foremost. How does it feel to receive that acknowledgement for your work, and what was your reaction when you first found out?
I didn't believe it at first. I thought they had the band name wrong. It's amazing. It's an amazing thing to have happen to you in this business. I mean, and especially in Canada. It's
your home country.
It feels pretty great.
More, right?
It feels pretty great in that sense, but it is really. I've said it before, but it feels like we have a bit of imposter syndrome where you're like, you don't feel like you have any business being in amongst the people that are there, and as part of like history of Canadiana and whatnot. It's just I don't know if I feel like deserving of it, but it is what it is. I'm very happy they decided that.
I feel like we're too young for this award. Like we should be like another 15 years older before we get inducted to anything. In half the interviews, they expect them to go, "What took them so long?" But yeah, we're just dumbfounded, and I think we're a little bit gobsmacked. The whole thing is just like, what? So it's a little tough to wrap your head around.
Yeah. So in a recent interview, Chad, you mentioned you had this really great quote. You said, "Anybody that thinks that we take this band seriously is hilarious because we're just four goofballs sitting there going, can you imagine if they play this on the radio?"
Yes.
Yeah.
Constantly.
I want Daniel to comment on this.
Okay. So we're pointing this one at Daniel.
Yeah.
How do you think having that levity and like not taking yourself too seriously has positively impacted your overall experience making music?
These a-holes.
Just jackals.
You know what? It's made us stay together for a long time.
Yeah.
Not taking things too seriously, not getting bent out of shape. Geez. I mean, I don't know. I think people can see that we're not taking this too seriously. Maybe that's how, like during the shows, like people are truly entertained, and there's always good reports after our shows, like Chad's awesome banter on stage, how much fun we have.
But a good example.
And then they'll walk away going like, oh, like those guys just look like pricks. Some bands are just like, I don't know.
There's no pretentiousness. There's just we don't. It's not that.
I don't think so anyway. So.
I hope not. But I think that there has been some misrepresentation of this band. Like the four of us will, and I've been saying this, for a while. Like the four of us will be in a photo shoot, right? And we're taking pictures for hours, and it's us goofing off, and we're just like big smiles, and it's just nothing but levity. And then right at the end, they all do the same thing. Like for 25 years in this band, they go, "All right, guys, let's get a little, give me a little attitude, give me a little attitude, give me a little serious. Come on, here we go. And we kind of like tighten up our faces, all just go a little stoic, bang. And that's the one they use every single time. It's like, look at these shitheads. They are just taking themselves so seriously. And we've got songs that start off with, I like your pants around your feet. And like songs that the hook line is, you know, you look so much cuter with something in your mouth. Where we laugh to ourselves. You want to talk about Weird Al Yankovic? We're laughing to ourselves going, can you imagine if they play this on the radio? And they play it on the radio. You know, both of those songs went to number one in the U.S. And we think that is absolutely, that's hilarious. That's hilarious.
I think a better example of how ridiculous this is this guy walks around with a microphone and it doesn't even work. It's what I'm saying. It's right up here. This one's working. And look at this guy. Like,
Thank you, Boom Mike.
I've told him for days to take that stupid thing off, but he's like,
I break everything I touch.
yeah, it makes him feel
break
important.
everything.
I think it makes him feel important.
He feels like he's just on a constant running of the Truman Show.
Don't we all? Don't we all?
Hang on.
So speaking of next year with the ceremony, you also have massive anniversaries next year. So 15 years of Dark Horse, 20 years of The Long Road, 25 years of The State. Do you have any plans to celebrate these milestones? Any like gigs, reissues?
We're only into 15-year anniversaries.
Okay.
Wow.
We were supposed to do a 15-year tour of all the right
Wow.
reasons, and that got sidelined. And I was like, I always thought the 15-year thing was a weird one to
15
celebrate.
is a weird one. 20 makes sense.
I'm trying to wrap my head around everything that Erica just said. I'm just like, what?
I know.
I'm like, you're talking.
I know.
Wanna see the notes?
Your numbers are wrong, and you're speaking to the wrong band. There's
Yeah.
just no possible way. Because when you go like, you made this record 25 years ago, it's like, God, no. I'm glad we started the band when we were all 6.
That's why my joints hurt so much. That
Exactly.
explains a lot of things.
Yeah, it's really a last consideration. I don't even think of it. People have asked us like, so your 10th album, when you were making your 10th album, when you were thinking about making your 10th, I didn't even know it was the 10th album. Honestly, I just forgot.
Actually,
I had to think about it because I remember the 8th album, we were like, we couldn't come up with a title for it, for No Fixed Address. We're like, why don't we call it 8? I guess because it's the 8th album. That was
We got to
last.
10.
That was the last time I counted. I didn't even know.
We
So
get to 10, it's like, why don't we call it 10? I'm like, we can't. I think Pearl Jam already did it.
we're very
Like, oh,
organized.
yeah.
We're very organized and calculated, as you can tell. I would love to do something for the fans for that. It's the fans' album now. Those ones are. It's theirs.
Come on, 2 of those
So-
records don't count.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat about the new album, and yeah, really enjoyed it, and can't wait to see it live.
Thank you, Erica.
Thank you.
Of
awesome.
course, thank
Thank
you.
you.